Yeah. According to the book, as Joe said, Donald Trump told Bob Woodward, quote, "I have built a weapons system that nobody's ever had in this country before. We have stuff that you haven't even seen or heard about. We have stuff that Putin and Xi have never heard about before. There's nobody. What we have is incredible," he said on the record to Bob Woodward. Woodward's book says unnamed sources later confirmed a new weapons system, but they would not provide any further details and were surprised, as you can imagine, Joe, that Donald Trump had disclosed it.
Yeah, just absolutely shocking. Shauna, so much here to talk about, but the fact, again, that the President of the United States, this would be like Harry Truman over drinks with friends talking about the Manhattan Project a couple of months before atomic bombs were dropped on Japan to end World War II. Here, Donald Trump is blurting out to a reporter that we have a top secret classified nuclear system that nobody knows about, except, of course, he was saying it on tape, on the record, so now everybody knows about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Russia and China know what their next sort of target is when it comes to cyber disruption and trying to find out new information, so that's not great. But I also think that is an example of kind of how the president was trying to clean this up. He said, and I read this in the Washington Post this morning, that part of the excuse of what he was saying to Bob Woodward is we wanted to show strength and confidence. And that's all fine and dandy for if you are in a World War II situation with other people, other countries, that kind of thing. But I keep coming back to everything about COVID and this idea that he wanted to show strength and confidence towards a virus. The virus doesn't care if we are strong or confident. Now, I understand the idea of a president not wanting to alarm the country, but part of that not alarming the country is being very real with the country about the risk we were under. We've also learned, and you know, we spoke for weeks because we were all wondering, did he actually watch or listen to his briefings? Did he read the briefing books? This stuff was in the briefing books. How did he not know more? Why was he playing this down? So now we know he understood. He understood the risk of it. And he sees, it appears he sees so much in terms of winning and losing the election and not necessarily winning and losing human beings and Americans, that is the guiding force to everything. So we have to remember that. And as people are deciding who to vote for, they have to remember that he seems to care more about this idea of will he become president again at all costs instead of can we save some lives in the country? This all factors in to the election. But I do want to say one thing, because I did an experiment. I reached out to a family member in Texas who is a veteran and who considers himself conservative, because I was just curious last night, had he seen any of the news about Woodward's book, the Washington Post reporting about Woodward's book, any of the things we've been talking about? And he is undecided about voting in general, because he doesn't really like President Trump or former Vice President Biden that much. And he had seen nothing about it. And I think what that tells me, that's a clue to the Vice President Biden campaign to get on the air with the excerpts from this book to try to get it out there to more people. How are they going to target their ads on Facebook? How are they going to target their ads online? And what do those ads look like? They have his words. They have the comparison of his words to Woodward behind the scenes and everything he said in public, which I think there were multiple pieces last night on the nightly news kind of comparing those two things. But what that very small anecdotal test said to me is that the Biden campaign has to figure out how to get out there with this information and these things that y'all are talking about this morning.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.